Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to another episode of Candid Conversations about network marketing. And as usual, hi, I'm BK, and with my co-host as usual, Dr. Wayne.
Hi, BK. Hi, everyone.
So, Dr. Wayne, I was just looking at the show notes, and past 2 weeks we talked about our physical self and our physical health and how that can actually help us achieve peak performance. Today, we're going to talk about something a little bit different, but it's going to be vital as well in our pursuit towards greater things in life, as well as, of course, health, wealth, and prosperity. So,
Yes.
over to you, Doc.
Thank you, BK. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, so this one is, the title of this one I'll put down is When You Understand This Universal Law, Money, Advancement, Security, Happiness, and Life Expands. And I'll give a little clue about it. It's about choice. So we'll come back to that one shortly. And as BK just mentioned, last week we spoke specifically about the pineal gland and its importance. And we looked at the pineal in terms of its physical location, and we looked at its importance in terms of what it does hormonally, etc., within the body. And then we looked at the concept of it being the third eye, or where we can then basically place our attention. And by doing this, the pineal gland then can do some incredible things to help us to achieve our goals. So think of this as the center, the gland, that basically gives us our freedom when we are able to concentrate on it. And as BK mentioned, then we talked about week prior, but also last week, then we looked at the physical body and how we can then improve our physical body to heighten our awareness. And remembering everything we're doing here is around the understanding more about the subconscious mind, more about the conscious and subconscious mind. And for those who are just coming on for the first time, sorry, you won't remember because it's your first time, but the concept is that 90% of who we are is programmed prior to the age of 7. So why is this important for the network marketer or the small business person or the entrepreneur? Is because our success is determined by those 90% of thoughts that we don't even understand. And the concept that we've talked about many, many times before is maybe you're watching this or listening to this, or you'll have a computer. The computer screen is what we visually see. So you're seeing me or hearing me now. And so going back to the computer, we've got the computer screen. But the most important part is the operating system. If there's a virus in the operating system, where do we see it? We see it in the screen. Maybe the cursor won't move. Worst case scenario, maybe we get blue screen, for example. And this is exactly with the human mind, for example. So we've got our subconscious, which is our programming, or the hard drive, for example. And then what happens is our consciousness is what then we see and we then hear, for example. So just looking at that in terms of an understanding. And then last time, as BK mentioned, I just sort of touched on there as well. We looked at some really important concepts on how you can look at the physical body to improve memory, clarity, and the things you can do. And I gave 7 tips on how to actually activate your pineal gland as well. Now, if you didn't get a chance to listen to it, please go back. It's in our archives. BK will go through that later, how to get to there. It sometimes comes up on the screen automatically as well. And that's where you can go and actually find these archives. And then we actually have the show notes for you there as well that you can then follow along as well. And as mentioned, where we want to go to now is when you understand this universal law, money, advancement, security, happiness, and life expands. And we've talked about in prior episodes, there are 7 laws, and we've talked about in depth the first 3 laws, and they are immutable. So immutable means we cannot change them. But we can work with them, and we've used examples like gravity. We think we can't go against it. Well, we can't, but we can actually get in a plane and go from one area to another if we use that law with us. And we went through in detail in other episodes on how we can do that with each of the immutable laws. The good thing about this next one is it's mutable. So this is why when you understand this universal law, money, advancement, so advancement in your executive ranks as a network marketer, security, safety, starts to happen, because now what happens is income starts to accentuate, or to actually get to a level where you'll feel more secure. Happiness and joy starts to become a part of you as well, and therefore life will expand. And I'm sure right now you might be thinking, okay, what is this universal law that I have to know about? And the law is the law of polarity. And as mentioned, the most important part about this law is it's mutable. So anything you want to chime in there so far, BK, at all?
Well, I mean, for some of the listeners, and if you are very new to all this, right, just always remember that we are trying to kind of put the signposts and the direction markers, just like what you see on the highway or on the road, right? And we are
Yeah,
kind of pointing you to where you can start to explore different things. So, the interesting thing about the human mind is that when you do not know about something, you just do not know about it. But once you start to know about something, then it kind of opens up a whole new world to you, and then it starts to come to you in various forms, sometimes from a book or from another friend, and then from another podcast and from our podcast and stuff like that. So
yes.
just understand that that's what we are trying to do here, and when we have done that, I think we have achieved our goal, and help to point you to a different direction and better resources for you to activate your goals and your achieve the aims you have. Now, and then the other thing is that sometimes I find that for first timer who listens to this, when you think about things like immutable laws and things you cannot change, and then when you think about the word law, sometimes people get, perhaps maybe when you were in school, you were in a highly disciplinary kind of situation and you don't like such things. But I find it liberating. I find it liberating in two sense of the word. Let me explain why. When I know that something is immutable, or when I know that a certain person has a certain immutable characteristic, I actually like it because I know how I can work with it. Right? It's
Very
like,
true.
so when you know that there are certain immutable laws in the universe, it is liberating because you then know that this is how you can work with it. Right? That's one part of it. Now, then today we are talking about something even more fascinating, because this is something that is a mutable law, which means we can change, or we can change our response to it. And like what Dr. Wayne was talking about just now, we kind of had a quick discussion before we got started. This is about choice. This is
Yes.
about choice. The best thing about humanity is that we have all been given the dignity of choice, right? And I think what Dr. Wei is going to take us through later on, because the law of polarity is literally a law of choice, and that I find is fascinating.
It is very fascinating, and because it's mutable, it basically, because we can then change it, which is absolutely fantastic once we understand it. And that's the very reason, just emphasizing this all again, for those people who are new on board, is that the reason we're doing this is because, especially looking at the subconscious mind and the way the mind works, is because we've found that, and I've personally found in small business, and BK and I have found it very true in the network marketing industry. And it doesn't matter what industry or where you go, there are enough tools out there. So I'm sure that your network marketing company has the tools. It's got a great website. It's got hopefully a great ethos. It's profitable. It's got some great products, and it's basically then helps you within, like your upline then is able to help you. All these different things are there. However, why do only 10 to 20%, that's probably being a little bit generous, actually only make it with any industry? This is not just network marketing, this is any industry. So you look at the small business industry, most businesses, 80 to 90% fail within the first 5 years. And I can go on and on and on. You look at relationships, most relationships break down within the first 5 years. After that euphoric state of not being able to see the person for who they are, that usually takes a few years. And then all of a sudden you come out and you go, whoa, what's happened here? And so this is anything. And the emphasis that we're really, really looking at and want to get across is that there are, and as BK mentioned, there are these laws, was really liberating. Once we know how to work with them, like gravity, we work with it. Now we can fly. And this one, we can now harness it and we can change it. So the law of polarity basically means the law of opposites. So you've probably heard of light and dark, and yin and yang, and male and female, and everything on planet Earth is basically an opposite. Green and dark, for example, light and dark, green and brown. So you've got all these different opposites that occur. And what even with thought, we've got good thoughts and dark thoughts. And from previous episodes, we've talked about that the average mind, or the average person per day, has 70,000 thoughts. And if you look at your thoughts, which is really difficult to do, 80% can be negative with most people. So what we can do then is we can look at our thoughts and we can go, wow, I didn't know. And this is where BK mentioned, once we know something, then we can explore it. And the beautiful part for those people who are listening, yes, BK and I are open-minded skeptics. And we love open-minded skeptical people, because that means the open-mindedness means you'll go and explore it for yourself to find out if it's true or not. Unfortunately, the cynic or the closed-minded skeptic will never listen to these podcasts. And that's okay, that's fine. But for the open-minded skeptic, when you really are shown how these universal laws work and how we can work with them and how we can mold with them, all of a sudden things can change where our financial situation changes, our health can change, our relationships with ourselves and our family and our loved ones and friends can totally change as well. And even our spiritual way of looking at who we are can then change as well. So this law is absolutely fantastic when we really grasp its contents. So you can think of hot and cold. You can think of truth, someone who's truthful and someone who bends the truth. You can think of love and hate, and peace and war, positive and negative. All these different laws of polarity, we can then basically use them positively as we move through our life. So what we've got to try and do, I think the concept that is really important to grasp here is, when we understand one of the laws is working against us, so say, for example, for whatever reason, you might have an argumentative stance in the way your personality comes across, or it might not be soft, it might be more harsher. And you can only explore that when you take the responsibility on to actually understand that may be your reason why you're not advancing. Or it might be that, you don't like talking in public, or talking in groups of people. Yes, and that might be very true, and it becomes real when, if you do it, you can notice your sort of like your mouth and your words are left behind, and you don't know what to say, and you feel nervous, and you get cold sweats, and this is your emotional reality to that reality. Whereas you get someone else who loves talking in front of other people, and they actually get a buzz out of it, because what they have done is they've risen above the law of polarity. They've looked at it and gone, well, that's the old me, or they looked at it, that's me now. I can't talk in front of people. Do I need that skill? Yes, I do. What do I need to apply that skill? Let's get in front of people. It might be only 2 to start with, or 3. Then you start growing that. And this is the beautiful part about rising above the law of polarity, so to speak. And it's powerful. It is really, really powerful when we can actually do that.
So I think it's interesting, because once you understand that there's two sides to something, right?
Yeah.
It just simply means that there's a existence of possibility, which is how I kind of think about it, right? So if something is hot, then it becomes cold. It can become cold, right? Or if something is cold, it can become hot. And if you look at it from this point of view, if you are not successful now, it just means that there exists a situation where you can be successful, right? There
Yes.
is the possibility. It is not one state. It is actually a spectrum, right? It's actually a spectrum, or rather, in this case, it's literally is a duality. So it is kind of two sides of the same coin, right? So you cannot have failure without having success, right? And vice versa. So and what Dr. Wayne is just saying just now, I mean, the fact that if you find something that is not working or going right for you right now, it also means that there is the very absolute possibility of the other side of the potential, right? As long as you flip the switch in your mind and then you think that, okay, I'm not a good public speaker now, but it also means that there exists the other side, which you can be a good public speaker as long as you're willing to flip the switch and make the changes, right?
Exactly, exactly. And I remember, going back when I remember when I was about 15. I don't think I've ever mentioned this, PK, to yourself, but when I was about 15, I actually saw myself on stage in dreams and different things, and there was just this whole pull towards me being on stage. And then one day it kind of happened where I've been on talking to 3 or 4 or 5 people. That's okay. And then this first time I had to do a talk to 20 of my peers, and literally, I did not sleep for 4 days. I did not sleep for 4 days. And the team at the back of the room was saying, they could actually feel how tired I was and how nervous I was, and the anxiousness was coming through the room. And after I come off stage, my team then said to me, luckily, all you had to do was read the slides. That's all you had to do was read the slides.
That's
And I
one of the
remember,
things that you can do, right? I mean, if you are nervous about things like that, then have slides that you can read off, right? So that you
yeah,
don't,
yeah,
I mean, it definitely gets better. Now, the other thing is that this is something that we always get from the team, right? I mean, both of us have people all over the world, and then sometimes they kind of make comments like, "Oh, you're so good at doing this, and you're so good at public speaking." Um, the thing is this: you must understand that both Doc and I have put in literally thousands of hours,
yes,
and we didn't get to where we are. I mean, we are not. I mean, I'm not saying that we are great now. I mean, we are all trying to be better public
definitely,
speakers for sure. But what I'm
yeah,
saying is that where we are now, at a certain level of comfort in front of a crowd, literally came about from hours, thousands and thousands of hours of practice, right? And even till today, I'm sure Dr. Wayne shares the same sentiment as I do. Even each time we go live, each time we go in front of a crowd and audience, there's still that butterfly in the stomach, right?
oh,
Right. It's
definitely,
just that we
definitely,
have learned to manage it without it affecting our performance. And that's always the case. It is just human nature. So if you happen to struggle in this area, have faith, take take comfort in the fact that all of us go through it, and your better self in public speaking is literally at the other side of your decision.
yes. And even if we just look at what you just said there, BK, take comfort. What's the opposite of that? Being nervous and anxious. Every word that BK just mentioned there, we have a choice to be the opposite, and it's okay to be the opposite initially. But as you move through it, what happens then? It does go into comfort, it does go into ease, it does go into flow. And I think one of the biggest things that both of us probably agree, and it happened last week when one of the paintings fell behind me, is being able to laugh at yourself and just go, well, that's just what happened now, and that's okay. And even if you say words, well, that was a funny word that come out just then, I don't know where that one come from, and just being open with it, and people will basically love you for it as well. So, everything starts with a thought, and remembering most people's thoughts are negative, which is a shame, or which is just the way it is. It's not a shame, it's just the way it is. And once we understand what those thoughts are and what may be driving us in that negative way, then what we can do then is then we've got a choice to then actually say, well, I actually do want to rank advance. And one of the things that I need to do is being able to do a Zoom call in front of 20, 30 people, or be able to, once we're able to talk in front of people directly more, then we need to get out there on stage, for example. Or it might even be, right now you're just starting off, and that is way out of your comfort zone. It might even be just picking up the phone or getting in contact with people to be able to take you to that next rank advancement. Or it might be where you are now, you really don't know that much about the product. And yeah, that might be one zone of your thinking, but how do you overcome that? Then you just watch hours and hours of videos about the product, and then you become your own expert. And And BK's mentioned it many, many times before. What every one of us has our own superpower. We have our own superpower in delivering stories. Our uniqueness is there. We just got to find that voice. And you have the option, you have the choice. And this is what the law of polarity is about. You have the choice of saying, no, I don't want to do that. Or yes, I actually am going to embrace it and I'm going to move forward and I'm going to do everything and learn as much as I can to help me to overcome whatever X may be. Really, really important to move yourself forward. And that's why I love this first of the mutable laws, the law of polarity. And even Newton's third law of motion was all about the law of polarity, which is for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction as well. So we can move through life in definitely a positive way as we acknowledge and take responsibility for understanding that unfortunately there are these negatives. However, we can change all that. So imagine what life would be when you could say to yourself, when you can say to yourself something like, I am totally aware now that of my 70,000 thoughts, at least 70 to 80% of them are positive, or are uplifting, or are non-judgmental, or are just coming from a loving, peaceful environment, or are non-argumentative. All I want to do is listen. I don't want to talk over people. All I want to do is share. All I want to do is embrace and be motivated and come from a heart space that people can feel. Imagine what life would be like if that was 80% of your thoughts. The thing that I would like for you to think of right now is to question, to be skeptical about everything I just said, especially if you've just come across these concepts or this concept, because anyone that's been listening to this for a while does understand if you actually allow your mind to stand still long enough and ask the question, what am I thinking about? You'll be quite amazed at about what you're thinking about. You'll be amazed. And by allowing yourself to do that, you'll then actually open up another dialogue in your subconscious mind that now is different, which now says, how can I change this? I didn't realize that it was such. I didn't, and as we started off in the beginning of this, your frontal lobe loves knowledge, and what it's got to do now is through your own discernment is work out what knowledge suits you best. And all we do know is from all the universal laws that are out there, even quantum physics today is proving these seven universal laws that have been out there for at least, some will say, up to 40,000 years. So it's literally incredible. It is a beautiful space to come from, this law of polarity, when we really, really understand it.
That's a beautiful way to wrap things up. So, with that, I think we have nicely wrapped up another episode of Candid Conversations about network marketing. And as what we have said before, as long as we are able to point you to a slightly better direction, I think we're happy that we have done our part. So if you have found any value at all in the things that we have shared today, please do us a favor and help to share it wherever you can, right? So that more people can know about it. I think interestingly, in the world today, there is a bit of they call it a spiritual renaissance in a sense, because there is an awakening of our consciousness to knowing that there's a lot more that we can achieve. But at the
Yes.
same time, you will also notice that there are very big, major forces out there trying to fight this renaissance. And I think if you are one of those who have started to awake to your potential as a human person and human being, then do us a favor and help us to share this out as well, right? So as Dr. Wayne mentioned, we do have show notes and we do have archival episodes. So if you do want to look out for the past episodes, Do look us up at networkmarketerpodcast.com. It's at networkmarketerpodcast.com. If you're watching us, it should be on the screen right now. If you are listening to us, it is networkmarketerpodcast.com. And of course, if you are really keen to dive right into all the immutable laws and the universal laws and so on, right? We have a very fully fleshed out program at 5. That's a numerical number 5, 5hiddenreasons.com. Numerical number 5, hiddenreasons.com. So thank you, Dr. Wayne. This was an exciting episode, and it's all about possibilities and choices, right? I think this is really one of the things that gets me excited. I mean, when there is a possibility and a choice, that
Yes.
gets me excited.
And it gives us a tool. Now we have a tool that we can move forward to influence change in a positive way.
Yeah. So we will catch you next week for another exciting episode where we talk more about things that can help you to achieve the real success that you truly deserve in your network marketing experience. Thanks, Doc. See you next week.
Thanks, BK. Thanks, everyone.